Hi, and welcome back to the Plant-Based Quick Cooking Show. I'm Karen, and we come to you every week from the Center for Plant-Based Living here in St. Louis, Missouri. The Plant-Based Quick Show offers you two things every week. If we're doing a recipe, we offer you two things. First, a recipe using only 7 ingredients or less, and we're going to do it within 30 minutes. Fun, and it's going to always be delicious. Okay, let's get started. This week's recipe, and I know I've said this before, it's one of my oldest recipes, but this really is the oldest. Back in high school, back in the early 90s, I made a good friend, and I went over to her house after school, and we were, hungry, and so we started raiding her fridge, and she starts putting all these things out on the counter, and she said, "Here you go, here's some hummus," and I said, "Here's some what?" And she said, "Hummus." I said, "I don't know what that is." She said, "You've never heard of hummus?" I said, "No, I haven't." And we then proceeded to gobble our way through the entire container. It was delicious, and that was the beginning of my love of hummus. Now, when I adopted a plant-based diet in 2008 and I started to make my food, hummus was the very first recipe that I started making all the time, and it's still always in our fridge. It's gone through many, many renditions throughout the years, but this is what I call my clean slate hummus because it's super easy, super fast, and it's kind of a base hummus where you can build other recipes on top of it or other flavors on top of it. So we'll get to that as we go along today, but let's go ahead and get started with this. I've already put 1 can of chickpeas in the blender and drained it. Now, if you are using, if you're buying canned beans, and I typically do because of convenience, you want to make sure, and especially for this recipe, you want to make sure you get organic chickpeas. And by the way, chickpeas and garbanzo beans, the very same thing. Buy organic, and then you also want to make sure that your can's label says a non-BPA interior or can liner, so no BPA inside on that can liner. It's an endocrine disruptor, aka bad stuff for you. We can actually talk about that in another episode. So we're going to be using the water or the juice in the can. In the can, it creates a really nice consistency, thick and smooth. And by the way, it's called aquafaba, really. So aqua means water, and faba is bean. So that water in there, if you ever hear somebody talk about aquafaba, they are most likely talking about the juice in the can of chickpeas. Okay, so we've got 1 can, and I like to make 2 cans for a couple reasons. Number 1, we eat it all. Number 2, it's a little bit easier to make 2 cans in a blender because it catches. So we have 1 can that's been drained, and then this other can, and you won't use more than 1 can of juice. Take a mesh strainer and put it over a bowl and just dump. Now dump your other beans, or dump these beans, into your blender. Whoop, jumper. And we'll get rid of this. And now we're going to go ahead and start to build our hummus. So we have our chickpeas in here, and now I'm going to add some tahini paste. This is also going to add a really nice smoothness to the hummus, and it's also a traditional ingredient in hummus. It's quite simply just ground sesame seeds. That's all it is. So it's going to offer a good amount of fat, but it's a whole fat. We're not extracting. This is not sesame oil. It's sesame paste. So we're using the entire seed. It's just been mashed, just like a peanut butter or an almond butter. And when you are in the grocery store looking for this, you'll probably find it in a couple of different places. Some stores will put it by the other nut butters. Some stores will put it in the international aisle. Typically it's by the Mediterranean foods, and I have usually found it up top on the top shelf. So if you can't find it, just talk to your customer service. Just about everybody's going to have this now. And this is a pretty thin one. It might just be because it's getting kind of hot here in St. Louis, and my storage in back sometimes gets hot. So I like to add two cans here, so 28 ounces, 2 heaping tablespoons of hummus, and that's those are not really heaping, so I'm going to add just a little bit more. You do whatever you want. I don't like to add really too much because I don't really want to taste the tahini paste. Even though this is not an overwhelming flavor at all, it's kind of like a muted peanut butter, if you will. But I don't really want to taste it. I want everything to blend really, really well together. And because it is a little bit higher on the fat side, the calories are going to be increased, and you just don't need a whole lot of it to make it really nice and creamy. Okay, so we have our chickpeas and we have our tahini paste. Now we're going to add some citrus. You want to get some citrus or some acid in there to kind of brighten up the flavors and break through those heavy flavors, which is going to be the fat and the chickpeas. All right, juice of 1/2 lemon. Get out your juicer or your citrus press, whatever you want to call it, and get in there. This is a big guy. Lemon is also a traditional ingredient in hummus, and it's really nice in there. If you don't have lemon, I would say add a little bit of lime or maybe even a little bit of orange. Again, it's not so that you can really taste it, it's just to brighten it up. And also, fast fact, if you are looking to add more iron into your diet, don't go for the supplements. Add more iron-rich foods. So that is going to be chickpea, lentils, tofu, cashews, pumpkin seeds, kale, of course. Now, if you add citrus, any kind of citrus while you're eating any of those foods, and the list is very long, so Google that, your body will have a much easier, your body will absorb that iron much easier if you incorporate some citrus as well. So please always have just a little bit of citrus in your meal when you are really searching for that extra iron. Okay, now we have just about everything. We're gonna get a pinch of salt as well, just to kind of balance out all those flavors. And garlic, never forget your garlic. 2 or 3 cloves, I love garlic, I'm adding 3. Okay. If you don't have a high-speed blender, that's okay. A regular blender will work totally fine. You might just have to run it a little bit longer, no big deal. Now, if you don't have a blender but you want to use your food processor, you can do that as well. But you may just want to run it a little bit longer, and I don't think that it's going to become quite as creamy. But give it a try. It might just be a little bit more chunky. But if that's what you like, then go for it. Okay, we're gonna get this going. Now, sometimes I have used an entire can of the water from the chickpeas, but most of the time I don't. Maybe it depends on how long the chickpeas were originally cooked. I'm not really sure, but you definitely won't use more than 1 can. So first you want to get everything going in there, and then we're gonna add our liquid, just a little bit at a time. I'm just going to add a little bit of water at a time just to really get things, because I like a really, really thick hummus. There we go. Okay, now you can go a little bit longer if you want, but this actually looks pretty nice. And then of course, always, always, always taste, 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 and adjust before you serve. Oh man, woo, that's so good. Okay, now, so you can see that I probably only used half of the juice today. Okay, get out your bowl. And I'm just going to set that down right there. And wow, you can see how thick this is. And it just comes right out. Now you could serve this right away if you wanted to. It's not hot or warm, but I think that the flavors will marry a little bit better if you keep it in the fridge for just an hour or so, and it will even thicken up some more after this. So if you keep it in a sealed container in your refrigerator, it will last probably a week if you don't eat it all, but you know, the challenge is on. I dare you to be able to keep that a week. So this is your clean slate hummus. This is just the base, pardon me, this is just the base hummus. It's delicious just like this. But if you wanted to add some more flavors, if you wanted like the perfectly easy party spread, no pun intended, you could put out multiple flavors of hummus. It's so easy to do. So have your basic hummus, something that everybody will like, and then you can go to your garden, for goodness sakes. Go to your neighbor's garden and add a little bit of basil. Whip it up. There you go. There's your basil hummus. That's the only thing you're adding to this. So basic, clean slate hummus, little bit of basil in there in your food processor, whip it up. There you go. This is a sun-dried tomato hummus. You can see how thick this is. I like to buy these sun-dried tomatoes. This one's from Trader Joe's. You can get it at any grocery store. They're oil-free and they're in this kind of vacuum pack, resealable vacuum pack. I reconstitute a handful of this in some water, about 10 minutes, drain the water, throw it in the food processor, add in the clean slate hummus, whip, 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 and there you go. So super easy and so delicious, of course. And then this other one, because I have dill growing in my garden also this summer, I just minced up some dill, and just folded it into the clean slate hummus. I didn't even put it back in the Vitamix, just whipped it up, or folded it up, and then you just add a little bit of garnish so people know what's on there. So these are 3, and I'm sure that we could just keep going with this. But if you had a party of just hummus, crackers, veggies, wine, that's a good time, right? You know, when we're allowed to have parties again someday. All right, so play with this over the course of the next week. Let me know how you did. Send me some pictures on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I would love to see them because I like to see when other people make my food. You know, that's kind of fun. All right, we will see you next week for another edition of the Plant-Based Quick Cooking Show. Thanks for joining me today. Take good care.